The next step on there is, in order to kind of work your frets now that you've sanded on them, just kind of work your frets and shape your frets. So I bought this tool here. This is I don't know if I can, Bafoke. I think that's the name of this. It's a fret crowning file. I opted to go with the full handle 4-sided. It's got a solid diamond grit here. That's for working the edges of the frets on the ends. And it's got a small, medium, and then large. So small, medium, and large fret. Now, I did say, hey, don't go too small with this because it'll cut the top and not the sides. So I chose the one that I think was a little bit wider for it, so that we can now take any square top, because when you go in here and level the frets, it's going to put a square top on your fret and you want it nice and rounded. This is to go in and add that radius back to it. Metal on wood, I'm worried about my wood getting damaged. I did notice that it's not too bad going to the sides here because that trim really helps guide everything and I don't have to worry about it. But I did take some edges off of this. So I put it on the drum sander and took a couple of the edges off of this. But I actually still have a couple marks in my wood from the file. And I think that's from it rocking back and forth this way as I'm doing it. So I really need to try to get even pressure. So Stewmac has new ones. This isn't from Stewmac. I ordered this off Amazon because I figured it was an all-in-one tool. Stewmac has these new V-Groove ones that they're advertising on there. I seen the advertisement, but we actually went over to the tools and the parts. I couldn't find them. But instead of ordering 4, 5, or 6 different V-Groove ones for different stages or different size frets, for now I figured I'd just get an all-in-one. We'll see how many more builds I do after this. Maybe I might invest into those. But one of the benefits of those is they're a block, and I think they're only 4 inches long. So you grab it and it's even pressure the whole time versus your pressure being on the handle in the back with one of these. And then you have to kind of even that pressure out by using your other hand. And now you really can't see what you're doing. So you need to pay attention there. That's one of the problems with these. So I might invest into those V-Groove tools from Stewmac. So I did notice it doesn't take a lot. This diamond grit really goes to town on this. It takes metal off fast, so you need to be very light with your pressure. And I really worked, I wanted to blend those flat, my flattest sides were on the sides here of each fret. So I kind of worked those sides, then I would come across the top, work the other side, then I'd go back across the top and just kind of run that whole thing. At this point, I've got all the flats out all the way. I don't think they're too low on the sides. I won't know for sure until I get the high and the low E string on here, but my measurements show that they're really not too far off from the center at this point, because I did work the center a little bit brought it down until this touched it. So I should be good. Who knows? I might have screwed the whole thing up and may have to refret it, take it apart and refret it once I get it done, but we're going to find out together. Another thing I noticed is that, man, this thing will take metal off and it leaves deep grooves in those frets. So you can't just do that and figure you're done with it. You got to sand it down after that. Now, what they recommend you do is take a piece of foam and wrap 400 grit, then go to 600 grit sandpaper around the foam block and run up and down the entire length of the fretboard. So I do not like wrapping sandpaper around foam. The problem with that is that it moves a lot. So this is square, this is flexible. You know, I can do this and tighten it up really good, but as soon as I start moving, I'm gonna have to squeeze on that foam in order to keep it in my hand, which causes this to change shape. It slips, it moves. This whole foam moves like this. It's really hard to keep going really good. The other thing that I noticed is, but I did it, I tried it. I started with 400, and as I go back and forth, you're hitting the fretboard. Now, that was twofold. One, I noticed on this top inlay, there was an edge on this top inlay. Probably nothing that would have made any difference, but I could feel a slight edge on that top inlay. The rest of them are nice and flush, and it did blend that. But it's going to go from the top of a fret down to the center of the board and back to the top of the fret. So you're leaving the top part of the fingerboard and the bottom part of the fingerboard in between the frets untouched as you go back and forth, as you drag back and forth. Can't really press the foam into it because everything changes shape at that point. Like everything just kind of changes shape. It's not going to dig in and get those edges down. And I'm now putting scratches, uneven scratches. I'm afraid that the fingerboard is going to bevel in between. So I want it to be flat fret, not dip fret. So I stopped right where I was. What I decided to do is I use heat tape, high heat tape for the ceramic coatings that I do here. Works kind of like vinyl, sticks really well and seals really well too. I can get a nice good line without having to really go back and dress up the line or trim it out. We're going to see how it works on this trim here when I paint. But it's resistant. I use this and bake it up to 300 degrees. It's supposed to be good up to like 500, I think. And I order it in a kit. It comes in, several different thicknesses and sizes off Amazon. You get like 5 or 6 different thicknesses, different rolls. And it's durable. It's like a plastic. It's not thin and flexible and stretchy like vinyl. It's harder like plastic. So sometimes making tight corners is definitely going to be difficult, but I wanted the toughness of it. And I can see through it, so I can see where my edges are. And what I did is I went through and I laid it down in between each one of these, and then sanded. So then I went to the 400 and I did go up and down this way. Then I went to 600 and did the same thing. But what I noticed is it's still getting the top radius of the fret. It's not getting the front part of the fret down on the side by the board or the back side of the fret, because that sponge just isn't getting sucked into the edge. So I had to take a little piece of 600 sandpaper here, and I doubled it over really fine, and I just used my fingernail and I really tucked it into that and went across and dressed out the front and the back of the fret while not trying to do the top, because I don't want to flatten it again. And really just kind of worked each one. That's probably the longest process I've spent on this so far. It took me a couple hours, hour and a half, to really take my time and dig into each one of these going through here. They do have a video on Stewmac as well that once you file these down and sand them, it creates sharp edges at the edge of your fret. And they have a video about using a file and how to dress that fret out. They talk about going this direction and dressing it out, and then using the file to go in and round out the edges. You bevel out the edges, and then you'll come back and polish them. And I believe on this 4-in-1 tool, that's what this flat portion here is to round and bevel those out. Now with this tool particularly, I was still really leery about leaving grooves in the board while going through there. So when I was using the 600 grit to get the edges, the leading and the trailing edge of each fret, I used that with my fingernail and ran it across and edged those sides of those frets really good. If you remember, I'd already taken the block. I had a nice 35-degree angle there. Then I went this way and shaped it. Now I'm just taking that corner off and just smoothing that corner with my fingernail with that and working that at the same time. So I went one direction on this side, working that edge, came the other direction, working the opposite side and working those edges on that side. And right now these things are super gorgeous and smooth. They don't stick out past my fretboard. They don't come into the wood area. If you notice, it's kind of hard to see, but all of the angles here stop pretty much at the edge of the wood, and they're just over the trim. So I'm not going to get a lower E string than I am a G or what have you. So Hopefully I didn't mess up the frets on this and have to refret it. I did go back and measure it with a measuring tool. I do have a slight radius there, but for the most part, they're all pretty close to each other. And I can lay my straight edge on there and I can still get a good touch all the way across. And I didn't have to adjust my truss rod after that. So I know I did maybe something right. So we'll find out. We're going to find out when there's no way to find out again until we throw the humbuckers in here and all the attachments and string it up for the first time in order to check our action. So I definitely don't want any buzz. I want a nice clean connection here. I like that low finger action. I love Ibanez. Ibanez has got a really good low action. I'm going for about a 0.04 on my string height from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string. I'm going to play with that a little bit because I've got the adjustable nut in addition to everything being adjustable down here. And I'm going to play with that a little bit. But I definitely don't want any buzzing going on. If I've got good action here, I don't want anything buzzing going on. So I think I'm good. We're definitely going to find out. I've got a gentleman who's a much better guitar player than I do. That's what he does for a living, is play guitar. And he is going to work the heck out of this thing for me. When I get done with it. He's actually in the same building that I do. He's got his recording studio and his rehearsing studio in the same building. He's a Les Paul fan, and he owns a couple of them, and he's agreed to take this and just really put it to town in his studio when I get done to see how well I did and how well it compares to his actual LP that he has, his Gibson Les Paul. And then based on that, I may go back and redo a few things on this. But at the least, I know what I will or will not have to change going into the next build. I've already got it in my head that I want to do a V. I'm a huge Les Paul fan because some of my favorite guitarists are Ace Frehley. I couldn't find a triple pickup with no whammy bar. In a kit. All of the triple pickups came with a whammy bar, so I didn't want to mix the two. I ended up with the dual pickup to get the no whammy bar. So we're close to that. Another one is Jimmy Page. He got his from Joe Walsh. Love that, but at the same time, I'm a huge Rhodes fan, and I think that is great. So I think I'm going to build a V to kind of tribute Randy Rhodes. I'll do a black and white, but I'm not going to do a polka dot. And I think I am going to put some limited edition pickups in those as well. So I'm kind of looking to those as well to kind of pay tribute to another guitarist. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that build later. And I'm definitely going to film that one as well. So there you are. There's the neck work that I did. I did all of that before I sanded the body and before I sprayed everything. So that brings us current to where I'm currently at right now. Right now, the next step is to mask everything off here and then start my lacquer application. I want to wait on the lacquer because I've got some water slides coming in. I want to see, one, if I get them. Two, I might not do the water slide because the buildup on the clear coat, so I might decide to do a vinyl stencil and paint it in with enamel, gold enamel. That might give me a better result. So we got a little bit of time till then. So I'm probably going to mask it off camera before the next video, but we're definitely going to shoot the spray on the lacquer application. So till then, cool, man. Thank you, guys. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video in Chaos Garage. Hit like, share, and subscribe if you guys liked it, and as always, please be kind in the comments. Until next time.